Hey guys, in this week's Casually Criterion episode, we are going to review Being There, spine number 864. But before that, we're also going to talk about Deadpool and Wolverine, The Boys, Season 4 wrap-up, and The Acolyte Season 1 wrap-up. So, join us!
Hello and welcome to the Casual Cinecast, powered by Cinelinks, the show where we talk about the TV and movies we've been watching, as well as do a deep dive review of a current movie or a classic film from the Criterion Collection, as voted on by the listener via X/Twitter. This is one of those Criterion episodes, which we like to call Casually Criterion episodes. The film that won our last listener poll was Being There, spine number 864. My name is Justin, and with me for the first time in, I think, like a month and a half or like 5 weeks, because of various things, Mike. How are you, Mike? Good to hear you again.
Yeah.
Because we don't do video.
You. Yeah, we are not currently looking at each other, but we are hearing each other for the first time in a while. I don't think it's been quite a month and a half. But yeah, things have come up. It's the middle of summer. You were without power for, what, like 2 weeks?
Almost 2 weeks. I think it was 11 days total without power after Hurricane Beryl hit Houston somewhat hard. I mean, it hit us hard, but
hard enough to be without power for 11 days.
Yeah, that it didn't feel that bad when it was happening. It didn't feel like we were about to be without power for 11 days, and then suddenly we were. So it was a bit of a surprise, and then. I think July is a pretty popular travel month, and it's also my birthday month, my wife's birthday month, and our anniversary month. So
big month.
It's always a very busy time of year. So it's very easy to get off schedule, at least on my end, especially when a hurricane hits.
Yeah, same. My fiance's birthday is right in the middle of July, so that also kind of came about. So all's to say, it's been a minute since we recorded. Sorry about that, but we're here now.
Yes, we are. And the plan is to keep going weekly as we usually do, but, sometimes these things come up.
Yeah, it's free. What are you going to do? This is a free show, so.
Yeah.
I'm certainly not getting any money if anyone's paying for anything.
No, I think ultimately we're losing money on this because it costs money to
make this,
to make it,
and rent the movies.
Yeah. That's fine. And costs money to have a podcast feed in case people don't know that.
Yep.
So,
fun fact.
All right. Peek behind the curtain, and there we have it.
Inside baseball, if you will. Anyways, are we done with this part? Can we move on to news on the march?
Yeah. I think we should. We have a lot. Big show.
Yeah. All right. Here we go. News on the march. Now.
News on the march.
All right, Mike, we're here in News on the March, and you're up first because you're the only one who's seen the first thing we're going to talk about. So kick us off.
Yeah. This movie just opened last weekend, and it is making huge amounts of money. Big, huge opening box office, like everyone thought it would. But anyway, no surprise, really. Yeah. But it's good that movies are making money, even if it's big tentpole movies like this. And I am speaking, of course, about Deadpool and Wolverine. Yes, this is the third Deadpool movie and the first Deadpool movie that is in the MCU. In fact, I guess it's the first canonical X-Men movie in the main MCU timeline, I think. But anyways,
maybe technically speaking, I suppose.
Yeah. So anyways, I think everyone knows what this movie is. I don't really need to describe what it is. But I will say that I had an okay time with this movie.
Glowing.
Yeah. Here's the thing, I think, with me and Ryan Reynolds, and then especially with me and the Deadpool character specifically. I find it to be kind of obnoxious.
Yeah.
Like every 10th joke works for me, And then the rest of the time I'm sitting through a bunch of jokes that are not working for me.
Yeah.
All's to say, though, it's a pretty fun time. Like, I think a lot of people, the audience, seem really receptive to it, so I think people are going to like it. I didn't dislike it. I sound like I came at it from like a negative angle, but I would give this movie like 3 out of 5. You know, I think it's a decent time, and it moves the MCU story forward a little bit in this phase, which I think has felt a little slow, you know?
Yeah. It's been unexciting, I think, for me.
Yeah, and I don't know that this will fix that for you, but I can I'm starting to see kind of, I think, where they're going to be going to get to the next Avengers movie, especially given the recent announcements that just got done happening at Comic-Con.
Yeah, which are confusing to me as someone who knows nothing about the MCU other than the movies and various TV shows. But yeah. I'm sure I'll find out as those come out. And
I'm sure they're going to explain it, but I would guess it just has to do with variants in the multiverse, you know?
Right.
But anyways, I think everyone knows what we're talking about, the big Robert Downey Jr. announcement. But anyway, all I will say about this movie is Deadpool's a little too silly. It's sometimes I want to like take the movie more seriously than it's taking itself, and that's always kind of a bummer for me, you know?
Yeah.
It feels kind of like nothing really matters in those Deadpool movies, but then sometimes things get treated like they matter, like they have weight, and I'm always wondering like when I'm supposed to switch that mode on, because I don't always follow it. You know what I mean?
You mean like matter in like a canon MCU way, or matter emotionally to you and you feel invested?
A little bit of both. Like, for instance, like Deadpool, I think, is always presented to be like a hero. But in both Deadpool 2 and, spoilers, moderate, I won't go into specifics, but in Deadpool Wolverine, he gets people killed, and it's treated as like a throwaway joke, and they weren't always like super bad people. You know what I mean?
Right.
And like, but then sometimes a character will die in these movies, and it's treated like it's like a sad moment.
Mm-hmm. And
I feel like it's a little inconsistent with its tone. And like, do you remember the end of Deadpool 2? Like, whenever he goes and he takes the time travel device, spoilers for the end of Deadpool 2, and he like travels around and like shoots like the variant of himself from the X-Men Origins Wolverine, and then he shoots Ryan Reynolds reading the Green Lantern script. And
vaguely.
Yeah, he just like, it's treated like jokes. And then they kind of mention that stuff in this movie as like part of Deadpool's crimes or whatever against time. But it's like, if those things really happened, then that would make Deadpool not a good guy. You know, so I don't know. It's just like, it feels like a little inconsistent. Like it's just jokes primarily, and then every now and then they'll want to have like a scene with some heart in like the second act or something like that. I will say that Hugh Jackman is really good in this as Wolverine. He adds a lot of gravitas to this movie, and I think makes what does work really shine and really sing.
Mm-hmm.
I just kind of wish like Deadpool could be like, the character could be like toned down like to like 70% or something. It's just a little too relentless, and it keeps me at a distance from the movie, like emotionally speaking.
Right. And for me, my main memory and my main experience of enjoying Deadpool and Deadpool 2 were pretty much like the jokes. Like, that's kind of how I was intending to approach this one, was going in to see what funny things happen and what jokes happen. And
I think it's,
because I couldn't tell you who like the bad guy was in Deadpool 1. I think I've seen Deadpool 2 recently enough to remember that it was Cable or Josh Brolin or something. Or was it Josh Brolin?
No, he was like the good guy.
See, there you go. That maybe proves my point.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing, is I think that's normally how I approach the Deadpool movies too. But this one, I feel like they're trying to make it like a sweet, like love letter to like all the Fox X-Men, Fantastic Four, like the Fox Marvel era, you know?
Yeah.
They're trying to make it like a sweet goodbye, homage, love letter to those movies, while also trying to be like a carefree, goofy Deadpool movie, and also like an affectionate love letter to the MCU in general, right? So it's, I feel like this movie Deadpool and Wolverine has ambitions to make you feel things that the first two Deadpools I don't think did. And for me, I don't think that I was able to follow it on the I think some of the more emotional beats didn't land so much because they couldn't quite find that balance between traditional Deadpool jokes and the heart that I think this movie has, but wants you to really be invested in, you know?
Yeah, that makes sense. I can very much understand how that would be the vibe if they were trying to do something more than what I think Deadpool has been historically.
Yeah, but that said, the audience was really receptive to it. There were some great jokes. Even like the post-credit sequence was, I think, one of the best jokes in the movie. I had a better time talking about it with my fiance after we got home and like the next day than I did while watching it. And so that's good. So I like it now more than I did then, you know?
Yeah.
But
Well,
anyway,
good.
I think it's a crowd pleaser. I think I might be in the minority there. I think a lot of people will have a really great time with this movie.
Yeah. I expect it to at least be serviceable in that like it's a good time, even if it's maybe not as like consequential to anyone emotionally. Maybe it will be consequential to people.
Yeah, maybe they'll be
too.
able to sneak the emotion in and make you feel something if I didn't just build it up too much. But I don't know. I kind of just I felt like I wanted the tone of a traditional movie because like I liked what Hugh Jackman was doing so much, you know. But anyway,
yeah.
That's all I'll say for now. Just to say that I recommend it if you're a fan of the MCU. But if you at all find Ryan Reynolds or Deadpool annoying, this movie will not change that.
Yeah.
Anyway.
At a quick glance, like the poster for this movie just reminds me of Dodgeball.
Yeah,
because it's the same
does.
like red and yellows. Mm-hmm. And there's a D and an L at the end of Dodgeball and Deadpool.
Oh, okay.
So when I first, when I just glanced at it for a quick second, I'm like, Dodgeball? No, wait, Deadpool.
Sorry.
Anyways. I mean, did you create the poster?
No. But okay. I know you probably got your hopes up when you saw that it was a Dodgeball poster, only to be disappointed half a heartbeat later.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, we'll see if if I feel that same way after the movie. Maybe after the movie, I'll be.
You'll be like Dodgeball.
More excited that it's Deadpool and Wolverine.
Yeah.
Than Dodgeball.
Maybe.
Okay.
Maybe. But anyway, anything else you have any questions about this movie? Anything else you want to discuss?
I did see someone make whose opinion I generally respect, make the comparison to call it Super Bowl commercial cinema, which and talking with that person is the same way that I described Unfrosted, the Jerry Seinfeld Pop-Tart movie.
Yeah.
Does that comparison make sense to you, and does that feel about right?
I understand. Yeah, I guess so. I think Unfrosted fits the Super Bowl vibe, like as far as that's like how it feels.
Yeah.
But even though like I keep up with the MCU more than I think like most people do, I'm still pretty weary of its dominance over everything. And as much as I want movies to succeed this year, it is kind of a bummer that like this is going to be like easily the biggest movie of the year. And there's something so comic booky, for better or worse, about that. You know what I mean? It just feels like movies just aren't doing good. All these like good movies that come out, and then this is what the people want, you know? And it's like, which is fine because I don't not want this stuff too, you know? But man, I wish that more people had an appetite for different stuff than this.
Yeah, I think from having not seen the movie yet, and maybe one of the reasons I haven't seen the movie is that like even from the announcement, like conceptually it feels a little empty and a bit greatest hits to me, you know?
Yeah. That's fair, but
which doesn't necessarily, I mean, you know, if I go look up some band has a huge discography, like sometimes the greatest hits is fine, you know, that's what I need, right? I got all the songs I want in one album instead of having to buy, 15 or something, right?
Yeah.
But it's not necessarily a bad thing.
Here's what I'll say is they accomplished their mission, which is like, I think they made a movie for like general audiences that like, you don't need to know a lot about the MCU. You don't need to have seen Loki, although the TVA exists in this movie and it would help to have seen Loki.
Right.
So there's some like overlap and like it all lines up if you've been paying attention, and it does kind of tie some things together and kind of give you an idea of where the greater MCU story is going. But like regular people who aren't keeping up with the MCU, I don't think are going to feel burdened by this movie at all.
Sure.
You know what I mean? They're not gonna care about that. I think that's probably a success, right? That's a good thing.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think the other thing that kind of makes it feel that way is just not leaving Hugh Jackman's Wolverine story ended with Logan, which felt like the right way and place for it to end, Yeah.
I mean, that is directly addressed in this movie.
Yeah, I'm sure it is. There's no way to not. It's just like when they trot that back out, it feels like, we changed our mind because we thought this could make money. And that's what makes it feel a bit empty to me, although I'm sure they have fun with it. I have no doubt.
Yeah.
And
I think it's very much, I mean, let's not get into it here, but we could talk about it in greater detail. We've already kind of talked about it in Loki a little bit with the idea of variance, right? So it's like the Rick and Morty approach. It's like when one character ends, that character is still ended, but that doesn't mean that there can't be another version of that character out there somewhere that we could start following,
Yeah.
And I think that is the approach that they're going to be taking, especially given the announcement at Comic-Con, right?
Right.
So anyways, that's Deadpool and Wolverine.
Okay. Yeah, we can move on. So still have a lot to get through.
Yeah. So we have two shows to talk about. Which one would you like to talk about first? Acolyte or The Boys?
I say we do The Boys first.
Okay. Just
because I feel like the Acolyte we have maybe a bit more passion for, and therefore might go longer.
Okay. Yeah. All right.
Could be wrong.
All right, let's do it then. So The Boys season 4, we are going to talk in broad speaking spoilers. We'll probably dive into the end episode. Everything's time stamped, so jump ahead to the movie review if you don't want to hear any of this going forward.
Yeah. Or the Acolyte review if you want to hear that one.
Yeah.
But anyways, it's Boys season 4. It's been a couple weeks since it ended. And I guess I'll just kick us off, if that's all right with you.
Please.
Yeah. So, I've generally been enjoying The Boys a lot. I've actually just started a rewatch with it, finally convinced my wife to give it a go, and she's enjoying it, so I'm currently rewatching it. But
how far into the rewatch are you?
Like 3 or 4 episodes, I think.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, so we're still in season 1. But season 4, I think, to me, continued to be what I want from the show and to be enjoyable. I think one of the advantages to this having ended a few weeks ago and us being delayed on recording the podcast is that I've kind of had time to really, really let it sit. And there's some big stuff that happens in this, but I think overall there are some sort of like just underwhelming things in this season. Like some of the things that happen, save for maybe like the very, very end, feel a little, they don't stick with me as much. Like I don't have like as many of those big moments of like things from this season that I think back on and like, remember this, or like, wow, this is crazy, or this is huge. Could be that I'm not remembering it, some stuff, but like, I think that's kind of like the worst thing that I can say about this season to me is that like overall it feels a little underwhelming, just like that didn't quite hit all the same highs that previous seasons have. But I did enjoy it. I did have a good time with it. I thought some of the stuff they were doing towards the end of the season with like shape-shifting characters was really interesting and actually made for some genuinely like emotionally sad moments that maybe made me feel for characters more than I have to this point in the show. But and then the last couple episodes are a bit weird, just with like them being released around some similar events politically, like assassination plots and stuff. Being in the show was a bit awkward timing wise, which we don't necessarily have to get into. I think that made it, like, in the short term, really, really interesting. I was like kind of hooked in, like, where are we going with this? How close is this going to get to like real life events?
Yeah.
So that was like if you were watching in real time week to week when it came out, that may have made that section more interesting to you than if you binge it later. But anyways.
Yeah, I think they had to add a disclaimer to the finale because I believe, like, between the time that episodes 7 and 8 aired, I think, like, the assassination attempt on Donald Trump happened, right? And then
right,
they already, like, shot, edited, and had it in the can ready to be released, like, less than a week later. So I think they just added a disclaimer.
Even I was a bit behind watching episode 7. Or the second to last episode because of the power outage situation.
Oh, yeah.
So I was behind. So by the time I had watched that one, they already had a disclaimer on that one as well.
Okay. Yeah.
So definitely interesting. I want to say funny, but not like haha funny.
Yeah.
How that works out.
Just weird.
Yeah. But yeah, overall I enjoyed it. I think it might pretty easily be my least favorite season of The Boys so far. So what did you think?
Yeah, so I believe when we did talk about this on the show, right? The first...
Yeah, the first 3 episodes.
Yeah, so I believe when those came out, I was a little... I don't even want to say lukewarm. That feels a bit extreme. But I was feeling a bit underwhelmed with the season and a little off-put by some of the decisions. And I was still enjoying myself, but I was starting to see, like, the seams of the show, you know, and like the writing, and starting to buy into it less, you know. And it felt like it was dragging its feet for a few episodes, I feel like, and didn't know what to do with certain characters. So it felt like it was spinning its wheels with certain plot lines that felt redundant, you know, to what we'd already seen before. Like Frenchie and Kimiko, I feel like were not given... Like, they were done a disservice, I think, with the writing this season. But then you had really good stuff this season, too. Like, I think A-Train's arc was really interesting and satisfying. Butcher's arc, I think, was interesting and satisfying. And Ryan, and especially with the way everything goes at the end. That was all interesting to me. Like you said, the shape-shifting stuff. But I don't know, some of it felt a little ham-fisted, a little on the nose. But I will say that the last 2 episodes, I think, really delivered, especially the finale. I think the finale was really good. I'm with you kind of when I look back at the season now that it's over a little bit. When I think of The Boys, like every season, there's always like a couple big set pieces or moments that like pop out as being like, oh yeah, that's that crazy part in The Boys. Like when they drive the boat into the whale, or when they blow up, you know, Translucent in episode 1, you know, or there's the you know, that guy that gets really small and then gets big like Ant-Man inside someone's body, and then it's really gross, you know?
I was going to say the opening of season 3.
Yeah. It's like, I don't think season 4 had many of those. What I do remember from season 4, I think, like, when I look back on it now, is from the finale. So I'm kind of with you on that, which is, like, I think overall this season's just a little less tight, a little less impressive. It's starting to feel like they either need to not be afraid to not show characters for a while, or give them more interesting plot lines, you know? I feel like that's kind of been a detriment, but there's a light at the end of the tunnel because they've announced that season 5's the last season. So even though I don't think this season is as good as the previous 3, it doesn't really kill my momentum or enthusiasm for going into season 5. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly. I feel the same way. Like, I'm still, if season 5 was coming out in a couple months, I'd be, chomping at the bit.
Yeah. And in fact, where season 4 ends, I think season 5 is just going to be way more interesting than like what season 4 was. Just like the setup that they teased at the end of the season, the dynamic that I think changed between Ryan and everything in the finale. So yeah, I'm excited to go into next year, and I hope that they end on a banger,
Yeah, I just feel like they can hit the ground running in season 5, as opposed to maybe like ramping us up and kind of getting everyone back close to zero,
Yeah.
At least that's what it feels to me. It feels like with the things that happen, it's really, there's no need to do that. Like, let's just hopefully just pick up from there and like go.
Well, it finally feels like, based on the end, that like we can't really just reset the pieces like we did before.
Yeah.
Like we continue to do most seasons, where it's like we're not going to start off season 5 in the same place, where like all the characters are relatively in the same place as they ended.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe by the end of episode 1, season 5, it'll be right back to the
the boys together.
The boys all together. Yeah. Then Homelander in this tower getting mad at everybody. Who knows? But
yeah. The question, the girl, I can't never remember her superhero's name, but the smartest woman in the world.
Sister Sage, yeah. So I remember when we talked about it before, you were saying that, they hadn't quite shown anything that made you feel that she was the smartest woman in the world, like not much deserving of it. How did you feel by the end of this season? Did they do enough with her for you, or are you still kind of waiting for that moment of her brilliance? I mean, they did okay with it, I think. I still don't necessarily, like, she doesn't really, like, I don't know. I want to hear her, like, talk about things that only smart people would, like, just offhandedly drop some knowledge about, like, quantum physics or, I don't know, something. Like, because right now it just seems like she's just, like, a regular lady who can, like, see the big picture,
Right, yeah.
She doesn't really strike me as intelligent, which isn't a knock against her. I love the character. I think the performance is great. I don't know. I just I don't know. She could be doing so much. Like, why isn't she? Even if the answer is she doesn't care and doesn't want to, I would like to hear her say that. Like, why aren't you curing cancer, or why aren't you? You know what I mean? Like, at least have her be like apathetic or whatever. Instead, it feels like, can she? I don't know. Is she learned? Like, does she know medicine? What does she know? Yeah, she could see the big picture politically, and move Homelander around as like a little chess piece on the board.
Yeah.
But like, I don't know. Like, where it's just like when you label someone the most or the smartest person in the world. I don't know. I want to explore that more. That just sounds like a, you know what I mean? Like, you can't just give me that.
Hopefully we do, because all of her intelligence at this point seems to be pretty much rooted in like game theory and political tactics.
Right? Which is intelligence. I don't want to undersell that, but it's like, what else is she intelligent in? It's the most intelligent person in the world. So it's like, is she effectively a scientist, or you know what I mean? Like, where does this? I don't know.
Yeah. What are the limits? What are the upper limits specifically to that intelligence?
Exactly.
I would like to see
what
that.
What are the parameters here of this character? I don't know.
Yeah. Because I didn't quite get that. Like, I felt like it's like relatively. I want to feel the challenge of the writer's room, which is weird because you obviously don't want to notice the writing, and you said earlier you feel the seams of the show, but like I want to look back on like the intelligence of the writers to like what they've done with her character to make her intelligent, you know what I mean? And it does feel a bit easy that like everything plays out and then you just have her walk in and she's like, see, exactly as I thought it would. And that's a bit underwhelming to me.
Yeah. And that's fine. Like, I understand you always have to write those kinds of characters out because you can't just have them around all the time. because they're overpowered. But like, I don't know, just explore more of her character. I feel like she didn't get enough screen time considering she was a character for the whole season. You know, we got her little lobotomy arc, which I thought was funny.
Yeah.
But, you know, I want more.
That's funny. And just more of like the deep, just being like really pathetic and like sad, and him being the least respected and probably deserving of the least respect of most
his
people.
character went dark.
Yeah. But like he was the only one that she was lobotomizing herself to sleep with.
Right. She didn't have to do that for Black Noir.
Yeah. I like Black Noir, the guy playing him. I thought that's funny. Definitely plenty of funny moments in this one.
I think
some good...
I think the season overall is a little bit darker than regular, though.
Yeah, they did get some more emotional moments. Like I was genuinely sad for Starlight and Huey. Sort of, I think, in my opinion, forever having their marriage proposal moment ruined, because it'd always be like in the back of their mind that like Huey's done it before, you know?
Yeah.
I think when it actually comes up, like it'll be tainted no matter what by this person taking Huey through that already.
Yeah, I wonder what how they're going to handle that whole plot dynamic with Huey and Starlight next season. And also, apparently, I haven't really been on the subreddit, but my fiance was saying that there's been some backlash to the way that Huey was treated this season, because on multiple occasions, and again, spoilers for the show, this is probably the most specific thing that I talk about, but in multiple episodes and in various ways, Huey received multiple instances of sexual assault this season.
Oh, yeah. Lots.
Lots in multiple episodes in different ways, in different levels of manipulation. Anyway, and I think a little bit maybe like the body switcher one is maybe handled with a little bit more care and grace, but also it's kind of not, right? And like apparently some of the show directors were kind of like laughing at Huey's character. They thought it was funny that he was undergoing such trauma, not necessarily with the doppelganger, but with what's that guy's name? Tech Knight basement scene.
Yeah, which it took till for me to realize that Tech Knight was supposed to be the Batman of this world.
Yeah, just a Batman who everyone knows who he is.
Yeah.
But anyways, it'll be interesting.
I get what you mean.
It'll be interesting to see if in season 5 if they deal with that at all.
Yeah, I imagine they maybe might not go down that path, because it is a bit follows in line with like, you know, sort of the criticism of the old like sort of like drop the soap in prison humor that was like really, really prevalent. That was like, well, we used to always, it was a big 90s thing.
Yeah.
I think in
90s
like 2000s,
and 2000s,
it was
like comedies.
Yeah. Where like that whole concept of dropping the soap in prison was just like, just a punchline, just a joke. And like, then at some point we kind of were like, well, actually what we're talking about here is quite traumatic and disturbing. And maybe we shouldn't be joking about this. Some of the humor with Huey does fall in line. Which I didn't think about, but I also didn't necessarily find those scenes funny.
No,
I was just kind of like, oh,
yeah.
God.
If anything, I was just like, that's the other thing about The Boys is sometimes I feel like every character having to be like a depraved sexual, like depraved weirdo is like, I don't know. It's a little one note. I mean, it falls in line with the overall tone of the comics, you know, because it's supposed to be like outrageous and stuff like that. But I don't know. That scene, that whole Tech Knight basement scene, I don't think that really worked for me.
Yeah, I pretty much only enjoyed that in the end, the Alfred Butler character killed him.
Yeah, that was good.
But I liked that.
I felt like we lingered too long to get to that. We could have cut 10 minutes out of that.
Sure, yeah. I mean, you hit this point where like, if everyone is depraved, no one is, you know? Nobody's that much of a freak, you know, if everyone's got a funny hat, no one does, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
I understand.
Yeah.
It's
so
losing
anyways,
its impact. When we find out a character is that way, it's like, oh, okay, well, sure.
Yeah. So anyways, like I said, I don't know. I'm still on board for season 5. I'm actually intrigued at the prequel series they announced That Vought
Yeah,
Rising
with
with Soldier
Soldier
Boy
Boy.
and Stormfront.
Yeah. Yeah, I am too. I'm here for that. Imagine some origins.
Yeah, it'll be interesting if they can retroactively make those characters in The Boys matter more or give us new context, you know? I'm always a fan of that. But also, that show could also be completely soulless and a waste of time. I don't know. You know, I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. I was skeptical of Gen V, and I enjoyed that.
Same. So I'll give it the benefit of the doubt for now.
Yeah. But okay. Anything else on Boys season 4?
No, I say we move on to the Acolyte.
Okay. So Acolyte. Do you want to kick us off then, since I kicked us off on Boys?
Yeah, I don't remember how many episodes we talked about on the show previously.
Most it was 3.
Yeah. So,
but I think it might have been 2, like right after the premiere, because
yeah.
I think I remember talking about the theatrical sort of experience and not knowing much more than that.
Right. Okay. So yeah, what will I say about the Acolyte? I will say that I enjoyed this show. It had very high highs. It didn't always achieve, I think, what it set out to do. I think its reach exceeded its grasp a little bit in some places. Some character motivations I found to be kind of lacking and confusing at times. Mm-hmm. But overall, I think there's way more good here than there is bad. And it's very ambitious. The action is really good. The ambition of this show, I think, is really impressive. The cast, I think, is really solid. Some great characters. If you're into Star Wars, you know, like those kinds of archetypes, I think there's some interesting stuff here. But yeah, ultimately, I feel like, especially in the middle, it could have used a little tightening up in some places, or some more polish here and there. And I can get into specifics later. But overall, I enjoyed it, and I hope there's a season 2. But as of we record this right now, we have no idea. Mm-hmm. It's hard to tell how much people are watching this show or genuinely engaging with it because of all the like overwhelming review bombing and like negativity this show has received. It's hard to tell where the genuine interest like lies in this. Like, I don't know what the actual numbers are on this, and hopefully it's enough to get a season 2, because I feel like if it doesn't get a season 2, season 1 will be worse. because I think it very much needs a season 2 to feel complete. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I think so. And I don't always know how much to attribute that to me just wanting more Star Wars, and more Star Wars just being good and cool and something I'm always down for.
Right.
Or if that's the actual show, but I definitely want more from it. And yeah, it leaves off in some places that like I'd like to see where these characters go for sure.
Yeah. And I don't know, it's just a shame that like people can't just calm down and have like a regular reaction to content like this. You know, like when it gets released, it feels like, I don't know, if there's any kind of big IP these days that is going to be released and it stars a woman or a minority character of any kind, there's just the same conversation happening over and over, where people try to like review bomb it, which I guess is an attempt to like sway on the fence people about watching something.
Yeah.
You know, I don't know. I don't know what they're hoping to accomplish, but
or to make the studio think twice next time before they
like this is how we express our concern, and this is how we let them know we don't want them to keep doing this.
Yeah.
I don't know. It seems sort of short-sighted, and I don't think that's really how things work. But
yeah, short-sighted maybe, but like having too high of expectations of your opinion Maybe because I just don't see how everything about the show. I think it would be insanely naive if Disney didn't expect this reaction. You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah.
Especially post like The Last Jedi.
Right. Well, especially because, I mean, we're in the middle of like Disney's having to deal with culture wars all over the place, but Star Wars has been a culture wars, you know, for 10 years that they've owned this thing.
Yeah. Yeah. I just think it's something that they knew was going to be part of the game in making this show and giving it, making the creator a woman and everything involved with it. I think they would expect it and probably would take a grain of salt with all the like the review bombing and sort of thing. And so like that's why I kind of think it's a bit silly to go that hard as if like you're gonna do anything by review bombing. But I do know people that don't watch every Star Wars show that have watched this.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
maybe that's a good sign. It's anecdotal, but maybe
people
a
at
good
my
sign.
work watched. I don't know if they finished it, but they watched at least to episode 5 because I remember they talked to me about it with the big duel, the big lightsaber fight. So
yeah, which I think is one of the high points of the show.
Yeah, I mean, which was awesome. I said it earlier, but let's just reiterate. Like one thing that is never phoned in or done poorly in this, and that is like the fights. Like I think every fight in this is more impressive than the last, and all of them I think collectively are probably the best fights in any one Star Wars show. Like definitely the best action and choreography I think of any of the Star Wars shows so far, and most of the Star Wars movies. You know?
Yeah, for sure. I will say that and a lot of people got really hyped about the sort of like slow-mo crouching tiger, hidden dragon sort of like flying moment.
Yeah, that was cool.
It didn't do it for me. I was kind of weirded out in the moment. I was like, what's happening?
You talk about that, like just that one scene in the finale?
Yeah. There's like one shot in there where they kind of like float and like at each other. It's a very, very crouching tiger, hidden dragon. I don't really know how else to describe it.
Yeah.
But when it happened, I was a little taken aback by. Maybe if I watch it again, knowing it's coming, I'll feel less that way. But
I don't know. I think they need to do more stuff like that. I think they need to start approaching the things from different ways so it feels less samey. Like they recycle a lot of the themes in Star Wars, and that's what I like about it. But I think I like whenever like I can feel a new approach to something that a new filmmaker's bringing to it. Yeah.
I think conceptually, I don't know that it bothers me, but the execution didn't feel quite there. Like it didn't feel quite tightly executed or perfectly executed enough. It just kind of stuck out a bit like a sore thumb to me. That's literally my only complaint, because otherwise I'm with you that the choreography and I think the fights and stuff in this are generally pretty incredible.
Yeah, I agree. Like I said, my biggest complaint with the show, I think overall, are character motivations during key moments of the story. Sometimes feel so undercooked that it feels sloppy. And I don't know that necessarily that's fair, but that's my reaction whenever it's happening. Like in the flashback episodes, I feel like the motivations for Soul and I forgot his name, the Jedi who drinks the poison.
Yeah, the young one. He's a Padawan in the flashback, and
the guy from Game of Thrones.
Sure, Torben.
Yeah,
Torben is his name.
Torben. Okay, so like the motivations in the flashback episode for Torben and Soul, I felt were both like not satisfying as it was playing out on screen. Like they just felt like they were both like temporarily crazy, and they just needed to be crazy so the plot could happen for a minute.
Yeah. Like Soul's immediate connection to them when he sees May and Osha by the tree. He's like, I felt drawn to them, and like suddenly I guess like I don't understand necessarily how he makes the leap from seeing them to like this huge responsibility for them, and also thinking that Osha is destined to be his Padawan, with
it's just like
having
all of
barely
it
spoken to her.
Yeah, it just feels really like undercooked in my opinion. And then like Torben, like the character, like I don't know, his whole conflict is he wanted to go home. Like he didn't want to be on this planet anymore. Like what is this? What kind of motivation is that? Like he's a Jedi. Like what is he doing at home that's so important that he like wants to be back there?
Yeah.
Does he have a secret girlfriend? Does he have a dog? I don't, like what's he pining over?
It's kind of the vibe that I got, was that maybe there's something that maybe he has too much of an attachment to Coruscant. Like, Jedi shouldn't have that. And so like, I kind of get it overall, but in some ways the show feels like it has the opposite problems of some other, I think Star Wars shows that we've talked about, and definitely similar to like MCU shows where they've kind of limited it to 8 episodes. So a lot of times we complain that, this feels like a movie that they've stretched to 8 episodes. I think Moon Knight is maybe like the biggest example that comes to mind of that. This feels like the opposite to me. This feels like a 12 episode story, condensed down to 8 to fit into the 8 episode mold. And I don't know, maybe it'd be worse at 12, but like, I just can't help but want to understand more and take some more time. Yeah. Especially with a lot of the big ideas that the show has. Like to me, the show is introducing some ideas and some character motivations and some Jedi contradiction stuff that I'd really like to explore. And that were some of the most appealing things about The Last Jedi to me. It was that it was approaching the idea of the Jedi like differently than I had really done before. Yeah. And this feels born of like fans of The Last Jedi and the sequel trilogy, as opposed to, something like Clone Wars or Rebels feels like fan of like the Star Wars that came before that. Well, like this feels like maybe some of the first Star Wars I'm seeing that
feels like the
born
sequel
out
trilogy
of the sequel.
Influence. Yeah.
Yeah. Which is very cool. But with those, like I want the time to really dive into those, and I don't feel like the show got the opportunity to do that.
Yeah, and they may yet if it gets a season 2, right? But like for example, like okay, those characters that I mentioned previously, we're probably not going to see that anymore. Like those motivations are done, right? So
yeah, we're not going to go back and learn more about Torben because he's dead and gone. And
we may learn more about Soul, but maybe not. Who knows? But like one character that I think it was so detrimental to the overall series and really affected my enjoyment of the finale in a way that I just wish that I cared more was the character of May. Osha and May were not treated the same. Both played by Amandla Stenberg, and she was great in both of them. But I feel like the character of May was kept a mystery for so long that we never got the time to really spend with her or her motivations. So like by the time, like there's one episode where she's just like, oh man, my sister's alive. You know what? I'm going to turn myself into the Jedi. I give up on all this. I'm leaving. And then the next episode, as soon as she finds the Jedi, she's fighting them. And it's like, okay, maybe that's a misunderstanding. Or, all right, sure. But it felt weird. And then the finale, she's like, I don't know. And again, we're going for spoilers here. But like the finale, where she's like, all right, wipe my mind. I want you to be happy. It's like, I didn't feel anything from that. I didn't understand why that needed to happen.
Yeah.
I like this is the best you can't just drop her off somewhere else. Like you can't just give her a ride somewhere, or she can't hang out with you while you do your thing. It felt like the only reason her memory needed to get wiped is so that they could separate and then maybe find each other again later.
Right. I understand why they would want to wipe her memory, Chimere and Osha.
Right.
But I don't understand why she would
be okay with that.
Be okay with it, and like
right. And even if the answer,
I don't make that journey with her.
Right. Even if the answer is I feel bad for starting that fire and escalating things earlier. I feel bad for my part in messing up your life. I want you to have the life you want. Let me make this sacrifice for you. Like, that's a good enough motivation, but she didn't even get to say that. You know what I mean? Like, even if that's what I'm supposed to infer, sometimes I need the characters to just to talk about things a little bit for it to feel satisfying. You know what I mean?
Yeah. It can be a fine line to walk between what I enjoy speculating about and what I'd like to know.
Yeah.
And this one doesn't quite walk it quite perfectly enough that to me. It leaves me wanting things that I don't feel like I should want. And that speculating doesn't feel quite as satisfying to me on some of the things. But to me, and if you have more, please stop me. But like to me, these are all very micro complaints, because when I zoom out and look at the show on a macro level for all the stuff it does canonically and thematically with Star Wars, I think it's really cool.
Yeah,
and it's diving into some really interesting themes. Some of the themes that I've always loved about some of the a lot of the Star Wars stuff of recent times.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's overall it's quite good. I really hope that the viewership is strong enough to warrant a season 2, and I hope we continue to explore some of the things that really worked about this season, and some of the characters that really worked, like the character of Chimere, aka the Stranger. That mysterious figure that looks like Plagueis looming in the cave, that's all very interesting, and it's already helping to enhance, I think, the prequel, like with the context that it's providing. We can kind of see how the Jedi started to get too wrapped up in the government.
And how the preservation of the Jedi became more important than values.
Right. Yeah, and then also, we're getting characters from the High Republic novels fleshed out too, or at least one character so far, and I think that's really cool. And it's cool that, like, now when reading those books, it's going to add a whole new shine on that character, knowing sort of like the jaded political animal that we see in season 1 of The Acolyte versus the young idealized Padawan in the High Republic books. So that's cool.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's really fun to be in a wholly different era, I think.
Yeah. Not a Skywalker in sight. Although there is a Plagueis and there's a Yoda, and probably going to be more stuff. But
the little connections are fun.
Yeah.
Too. And I think the other thing about the show is I think it's a nice test of like the viewer's patience. And I think that's one of the ways to like tell who's being genuine about the show and who's not, because if you're impatient with the show, there was a lot of like impatient talk of like, this show is like destroying canon and it's not paying attention, and it's forgetting things that were said in the prequels,
right,
and the way the characters were in the prequels. And it's like, just wait. If you just wait the show out, it'll
line up in all the ways for it to fit in just right.
Yeah. But it's just like, it's very interesting to see people like, see 3/8 of a story and then immediately jump to how like the story doesn't make any sense. And it's like, sit through all of it, please. And then maybe judge or see if like the conclusions that you were jumping to were correct or not. That's another thing I've enjoyed, is just seeing people, I don't want to say get their comeuppance, because that's probably a little extreme, but like
be proven wrong.
Make those people look silly for getting angry.
It doesn't matter. People like to get outraged at shows these days. It's weird. Like the same thing's happening with House of the Dragon season 2 right now. There's just a subset of people who are just like ready to hate, ready to call it out, and then like the thing they're complaining about doesn't even happen. They get mad about like leaks that someone made up and that they read. you know what I mean? And that like that weren't even real leaks, and then like they just spent all week being mad on Reddit, and then it's just dumb. It's just dumb.
It's brilliant.
Yep. People are dumb, and media literacy is getting worse.
Yeah. I can't remember what it was. I think it might have been like the Think the Maker podcast. We're talking about someone, maybe it was like Conan on his show or some guest on Conan, talking about with like the way that streaming is, like a lot of shows have this format of like, do you know what I'm talking about? Where like they show you what happens and then you go back and see how we got there, because like audiences need to know. These days, it feels like the more successful shows are like audiences knowing what's going to happen first so that you can hook them in, because otherwise like they'll be like, this doesn't make sense or whatever, and like give it up. So you have to show them first
that you're aware that there's like that you have to get
like,
to that
this
place.
is where we're going.
Yeah.
You know, which feels like I mean, it just feels like, I don't know if that's media illiteracy or just maybe, I don't know if it's what came first, like the chicken or the egg. Are we responding that way to that formula because of, and by we, I mean general people, not you and me, but are we responding
Never
that
is.
way to the formula, or is the formula training us?
Right.
You know, I don't know. I just thought it was an interesting point, and I felt that very much to some of the reaction for Acolyte.
Yeah. Indeed. All right. Anything else we want to say about the Acolyte?
No, not right now, or not that's probably worth digging into, considering we have a whole movie review to do.
Yeah. And here we are, almost an hour in.
Yeah. Well, that's what happens when we
Talk about three things and news on the march.
Yeah, and it's been a while
That's true.
when we
Has
got a
been a
lot
while.
to talk about, because we could have done these like separately in
That's
different
true.
episodes, but we got to kind of cram them all into one. But yeah, you ready to move into our review?
Yeah, so here we go. Our review, or casually Criterion review, for Being There, spine number 864, starts now.
He is different, isn't he?
Perhaps. I can't read.
Mr. President, I want you to meet my very dear friend, Mr. Chauncey Gardner.
Mr. Garner, do you agree with Ben, or do you think we can stimulate growth through temporary incentives?
Thank you for joining us on such short notice and filling in for the Vice President.
You seem to be a truly peaceful.
Thank you, Ben.
To quote Mr. Gardner, as long as the roots of industry remain firmly planted in the national soil, the economic prospects are undoubtedly sunny.
All right, so as always with our Criterion films, we will not be doing a spoiler-free section up front, so consider this your spoiler alert, your warning. We're going to jump straight into talking about Being There, spoilers and all. If you haven't seen the movie yet, like I said, this is your warning. Pause the podcast now, go watch the film, and come back and finish listening.
That's right. So Being There was directed by Hal Ashby. It stars Peter Sellers, Shirley MacLaine, and Melvin Douglas. The IMDb synopsis says, after the death of his employer forces him out of the only home he's ever known, a simple-minded, sheltered gardener becomes an unlikely trusted advisor to a powerful tycoon and an insider in Washington politics.
Whew. It's a sentence.
It is. A whole one.
It is. One single sentence. All right. Well, I believe this was your choice on the poll. So historically speaking, that means you kick us off.
All right. I believe you're right about that.
Yeah, I feel right.
Okay, so Being There. This was the second time I've seen this movie. I first saw it many years ago in my 20s, and I loved it at the time. I thought it was very smart and unique. Now, having seen it a second time here in my 30s,
Yeah.
I can say that I believe it's still good. Surprise, surprise.
Yeah, I was worried you were going to go the opposite direction. I realize now it was derivative and terrible. Yeah.
No, but here's the thing, though. This time, I did not love it as much as I did the first time I saw it.
That's so interesting.
Yeah, but it is still quite good, never boring, and often very funny. It, I would say, somehow still feels relevant in this modern day that we are in right now.
Yeah.
I would say I think this is probably my favorite Sellers. I think he's very good at playing this sort of blank-faced man who doesn't seem to have anything going on below the surface at all.
Yeah.
His voice, his tone, his mannerisms are all very intentionally hard to read. So I think it's a very interesting performance from Peter Sellers here because it's a very fine line to walk. doing what he's doing with this. Yeah, it makes for a fun performance to track from scene to scene. You always kind of, or at least I was wondering, how is he going to respond to this person that's talking to him right now? Like sometimes you can, like a character will be talking to him and they're setting him up for something that you know this guy has like no mental like faculties to answer. And so like the suspense for me is always like, what's he going to say? You know?
Mm-hmm.
And that's always like a fun thing to do.
Yeah.
Yeah. All in all, I will say that this movie is very smart. It's very like satirical. It still holds up. But yeah, I don't know. I didn't quite love it the same way that I did whenever I first saw it. And I don't know what to attribute that to. But all in all, still an exceptional movie. And I'm glad that I watched it a second time. So, yeah. Justin, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, well, I think it's interesting that you say that on your second viewing you didn't love it as much as the first time, because this is my third viewing. Uh-huh. And I actually feel the exact same way. And I find that my enjoyment of literally watching the movie while I'm watching it has kind of dwindled with each viewing.
Yeah.
But my appreciation for what the movie is doing kind of grows, and it grows more when I'm not watching it. Because I find the movie so dry.
Yeah.
And his character so empty.
Yeah.
That it's not a very compelling watch.
Yeah, that's how he says it, right?
Yeah. Sometimes. Yeah. Yeah. That might be a little mix of Dr. Strangelove too. Not the character,
maybe. I don't know.
His politician of the it's good to be fine. But it is really interesting, and like I have a good time watching like what the screenplay is doing.
Mm-hmm.
You know, which is to what you're saying about characters are talking to him and they present him with questions or ideas that like, and you're like, how the heck is he gonna? What is he gonna say that's gonna keep this charade going? Because the movie still has 45 minutes left in it. And then vice versa too, is like he'll say something and then you're watching the other characters. It's interesting to see what the other characters are going to do mentally to maintain the charade too, right? Mm-hmm. Like how are they going to read what he said, which we all know and we can see is like he's just talking about how plants grow. And like how are they going to twist that and interpret it to like be what they want to see or think they're seeing.
Right, exactly.
Who he is. How do they morph and meld that? Like that's really fun to watch, and it's really fun to watch from a screenplay perspective, and really just like thinking about it that way. But the movie itself, I is not a very compelling watch to me. I think it's actually like really brilliantly shot in the way that it almost feels equally as observant, like detached observation as Peter Sellers' character is. Because like I know he likes TV, but like I don't even understand what his enjoyment of TV is.
Yeah, how
like,
much is he even like following of what he's watching?
Yeah, and like he just seems to switch at random times too. Like he'll switch in the middle of like a compelling scene or in like the mid sentence, and it's like, so it's not even like he's waiting for like a certain point to end or a certain moment to be gone before he moves on to the next channel, right?
Yeah.
So that his observation of TV, it almost feels like detached observation, you know. And the camera work in this is the same way to me. It's often a static camera. I can really only think of one moving shot, although I'm sure that's wrong. But it's the one where he exits the building to the sort of like techno disco 2001 Space Odyssey theme. The camera kind of pans around with him as he's like leaving the house for the first time.
Yeah.
And going through the neighborhood, and it kind of pans around with him. But otherwise, I remember my memory of it is mostly static shots.
I feel like there's some zooms though.
Yeah, maybe there's some zooms. But for the most part, it's just pretty just like observant and well framed, but not doing a lot to like make the film very dynamic.
No, and I don't think the movie needs to, because I think it's sort of like, it reminds me of something that like Adam McKay would do now. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
this
conceptually.
Yeah, it just feels like this feels like kind of like what Adam McKay probably thinks that he's making modern day versions of something like this.
Right. Yes. You
know what I mean?
I totally agree.
Or
with
like
that.
Barry Levinson, or you know what I mean? Like Wag the Dog type stuff. So I think it works in that, like the dry camera, the very like political adult theme, like the way it's filmed. It needs to be filmed kind of like a political piece. You know what I mean? Like as if they're talking about something really important, as if your character is an ambitious up and comer. You know, like. I like the dry, straightforward approach to the way that Hal Ashby is shooting this.
Yeah, it's the right choice. And if I sound like I'm saying otherwise, I don't mean to sound that way.
No, I just think that what works so good about the movie, I'm just kind of jumping off what you were saying, is just this idea that I think Hal Ashby, he's filming it as if he's making a really smart political satire. I don't think that or even a smart political thriller or whatever it is, you know, he's filming it for adults. And then I think what you're supposed to do is the juxtaposition of throwing this simpleton into the mix and following him around while he's talking to adults who like are educated adults, you know, and we know for a fact as an audience that this man is quite the opposite of that. And it's really fascinating to watch that like play out, you know, but it is a little one note.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
And I can't help but think, and I usually don't like to be this guy, but like if this movie's 2 hours and like whatever minutes long, I don't know. Wouldn't it be better at 1 hour 45? You know, like.
Yeah. I think it might be like 1 hour and 40 minutes.
Well, maybe it is, but you know what I'm saying? I just feel like.
I know what you mean. Yeah.
It feels like the idea is so simple that for a modern audience, we get it pretty quickly, and we kind of get the gag. Like, oh, okay.
Oh, no,
it's
2 hours and 10 minutes. You're correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, you know, 2 hours would have been. I just think that like it overstays its welcome ever so slightly in Act 2.
Yeah.
I think it ends strong with like the political puppeteers, you know, talking about wanting to boost
He's the
him
only
up.
logical choice for president.
Right. Yeah, I think that's great. And then like the life is just nothing but a state of mind or whatever, like the final line and like the water. I love the vibe that the end of this movie like it gets there and it's like it just ends in such like a weird, worrisome, funny in a dark way kind of way, you know?
Yeah.
And I like that. And I like everything that it implies, but I don't know, somewhere around the Shirley MacLaine love scene, I think it pushes the limits just a bit too far.
Yeah, I think if I had to make an actual complaint, it's just that like Shirley MacLaine's character, it feels a little undercooked to me. It just kind of feels like she's doing stuff because it's like the funniest way to take the scene, as opposed to like it feeling like natural to her character.
Yeah, like I don't know. I would have liked a little bit more of her point of view. Like what is this, like where is this woman at in her life to where she needs to look at Chauncey Gardner and see what she is seeing? You know, everyone sees what they want to see out of Chauncey. Why is she seeing this? What does she need from life to where this man is the answer for her? You know what I mean?
Yeah. Exactly. Because it's funny. I mean, like I really love him like repeating the TV, or repeating him talking about TV, you know, and watching with her interpreting that to mean like
learning how to kiss
things that he
from
wants
TV.
to do. Yeah. Like I think it's brilliant. and I love it on paper. But I think it just, her part in it just, it starts to feel like a self-aware, in a bad way.
Yeah, I think, especially as she's trying to like be intimate with this man, like the hoops that she has to jump through to like convince herself that that was a successful encounter. Like I just like it stretches like believability that even the rest of the movie doesn't. But I don't know. Maybe that's not true because the president comes to talk to this guy. And he talks about gardening. So maybe we're being a bit unfair to that scene and that character. But I don't know.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know. I mean, I think the rest of the movie does such a good job of making these logical leaps of how they can think like, oh, he's just speaking in metaphors. Yeah. It's like, that's kind of usually the leap that the character has to make.
That's true. I guess it's a lot easier to buy the political satire that politicians and newsmen and the public looking for stuff from like a public figure would see what they want to see out of this man. I just don't necessarily know what Shirley MacLaine's character, she feels like she's in like a high comedy and like everyone else feels like they're in like a satirical kind of like smart, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Especially in that scene. And I do like that, like, even like the Russian character who doesn't speak English, like he even manages to like make someone think that he's Russian, that he speaks Russian.
Yeah.
And is like understanding, like, oh, that's really funny.
It is.
But yeah, she's a little less, I don't understand the leaps that she's made. I don't understand how she didn't see it sooner.
Well, and Shirley MacLaine's great in the part, I want to say, but I think it's kind of a thankless role. Apparently, Sellers was nominated for Best Actor for this movie, but he did not win. Yeah. And according to IMDb trivia, Sellers himself said that the outtakes at the end of the movie sort of broke the spell for the audience. And he thinks, and I think I agree with him on this, that those bloopers at the end sort of kind of like undercut the very careful tone that the rest of the movie set up.
Oh, yeah, 100%. That's always been my biggest complaint, like removed from the movie, is that like watching those just kills the mystique of the character and the ending of the movie. Like I genuinely have always been baffled by this. Like, and it's cool to find out that Peter Sellers agrees with me because I didn't know that.
Yeah, apparently he tried unsuccessfully through multiple requests to get that removed from the film and was never successful.
Yeah. I mean, and like, it's funny. And I love a blooper reel in credits, you know?
Yeah. But read the room, you know?
Yeah. But this is not the movie for it. So yeah, I could easily imagine how that kills. It kills the performance in some ways.
Yeah.
Too. Like you kind of just, you have to ignore that. You have to put it in a bottle and not think about it, to me.
Yeah.
Which is a shame. But you know, I just love thinking about the movies. Like everything on paper, like really works for me, you know? So like, it is a bizarre film in that sense. Cause like, I can't think of many other films like this that like I love thinking about, but don't necessarily enjoy watching half as much as I enjoy thinking about them and talking about them. And
well, it sounds like you're more negative than I'm at right now. Like where are you at on a star rating right now? What do you rate this movie?
Like I've got it at a 4 out of 5. And I will say that my previous rating was 4.5 out of 5, and I bumped it down a half star.
Yeah. I went from 5 to a solid 4 this watch through. So
yeah. Okay, well, maybe I'm sounding overly negative, and I don't want to sound this, so maybe I don't need to keep harping on that point. Because I think it's good. I think it's genius, you know. But the only other movie that came to mind was like Solo, which is like hard. That's more just hard to watch for other reasons.
Yeah, that's a whole different thing. Yeah,
one I'd prefer to just like talk about for the rest of my life rather than revisit and watch again.
head and shoulders, like on our YouTube channel for the Casual Cinecast, our most watched video on YouTube is our review for Sallow or the 120 Days of Sodom, because our posters that we used to make were like stills from the movie. Mm-hmm. And I'm pretty sure like the thousands of views that we got on YouTube watching like that are probably all from like literally 30 seconds of opening the video, realizing it's just a screenshot and an hour plus podcast audio.
Yeah.
and they just bail on it immediately.
Yeah.
But I think it's funny that like it has so many more views than anything else on our page, probably because of that thumbnail.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I don't have much more to say about the movie.
Well, let's talk about a couple things here.
Okay.
I will say that, first of all, this is my favorite Hal Ashby that I've seen.
Yeah.
I haven't seen as much Hal Ashby as I'd like. I still need to rewatch Harold and Maude, which I was not a fan of the first time I saw it. And I wonder if that would change now. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, I have the same thought all the time. Like, I feel like I might have a greater appreciation for it, but I've always, like, I'm trying to think of other Hal Ashby movies I've seen, like Shampoo.
Yeah, Shampoo.
With, like, Warren Beatty, which I've always thought was fine enough.
Yeah,
and I
I
kind of
liked
felt
it.
the same about Harold and Maude.
I think
These
Shampoo,
movies that never bowled me
I
over.
think I liked that one quite a bit whenever I first saw it, but I haven't seen it in so long that I don't remember anything about it at all.
I tried rewatching it several years ago, and I didn't finish it.
Oh yeah,
I didn't make it through. I was watching it like with my wife, who was girlfriend at the time, and she wasn't into it, and I guess I could kind of read that too. And I was like, yeah, I'm not really like. I didn't have that feeling of like, well, let's just wait because it's gonna get good or whatever. I was just like, kind of like, this isn't doing it for me this time. Like, I don't.
the
I'm not sure
energy's
what
not
I
right.
saw. Yeah. So, but Harold and Maude, I think is generally much more revered. Or it is in my head, but maybe that's just because of There's Something About Mary.
Yeah,
how
it's
they
like
talk
maybe you
about-
just saw There's Something About Mary so much.
Yeah, it's just very possible.
So apparently the novel Being There, written by the Polish author Jerzy Kaczynski,
Yeah,
was actually plagiarized from another Polish novel called
really?
The Career of Nicodemus.
Okay.
Dientzig? Anyway, I don't know. I am not good at pronouncing Polish names, but apparently it was plagiarized. So, fun
Interesting.
fact about this movie and the novel that it was based on is apparently it was stolen.
Yeah. See, I did not know that. I know that I think like the author said that he thought the movie was better than his book.
Yeah,
I saw that.
yeah. Maybe they made the movie their own, and he's like, "Oh, they made new stuff out of it, and I just stole it." Anyway, I don't even know if that's true. That's just what Wikipedia told me.
Yeah, I don't know. I'll have to look into that because it's interesting.
Yeah. So as I was reading about this, this may already be like really widely known because like Peter Sellers is like a really famous actor. But I have never actually looked into anything extra about Peter Sellers. But it sounds like he was a bit of a dramatic guy who may have been difficult to work with.
Yeah.
Yeah. Apparently, there were some contract stipulations and high maintenance type stuff that he would do on set. Like, for example, Mary Routh, the costume designer, said that Sellers would refuse to work if the colors green and purple were visible on set.
Okay.
Which sounds incredibly dumb.
Yeah.
And apparently there was some kind of stipulation in the contract that he always needed to face like east or west. Like his quarters needed to face east or west or something like that. Like wherever he resided.
That's interesting because in the movie where
he wants to face north.
He sleeps better when his bed's pointed north.
Yeah.
Or his head is pointed north.
Anyway, I don't know if that's true, but that was on the trivia page. And I read some other stuff about Sellers. Sounds like he was a bit of a jerk to his children. So I don't know. Sounds like he was one of those troubled comedian guys that were beloved by the public, but kind of a bit much in his personal life.
Sure. Yeah, well, sometimes that seems to happen with the
it seems like sometimes
the greatest artists.
The brighter the genius, the darker the personal life sometimes.
Yeah. And I guess as long as it wasn't anything too crazy. If he was just kind of a pain.
Yeah. Or a mean dad. That's not very good, but
it's not good.
Anyways,
but I could separate the art from the artist, I think, with that.
Yeah. So what do you make of the ending?
The walking across water.
Yeah.
Thing.
What do you make of that?
I think that the movie is giving us the point of view of where his character has grown to, and the point of view of like the people who are still seeing him as like what he is, right? Like basically everybody but that one guy.
Yeah.
I think we're getting that sort of like subjective point of view of like, well, this is how they see him now.
Okay.
Is that he is, he can't do any wrong and he's walking on water.
Right.
Versus I think that versus any sort of like literal interpretation. But what do you think?
It's not necessarily literal. It's more of like he might as well be walking on water as far as like the way they see him, and like that he could do no wrong, and that kind of thing.
Yeah.
He is exactly what everyone sees in him, which is probably each one of them something different. And
maybe that's metaphorical to
right.
Jesus and walking on water and that sort of thing.
It's hard for me to go too much into it because my fiance looked up what Hal Ashby said about it, and Hal Ashby gave an answer, so like it's kind of tainted my vision. But Hal Ashby said it's not necessarily that he's like a Jesus type figure. It's that he's too dumb to realize he's supposed to sink.
Okay.
Which isn't really a real answer. It's sort of tongue in cheek, but you know what I mean. That's his answer.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, I guess I could see that. He does stick his umbrella in the water.
Yeah. And then it ends with that.
Suggests he thinks it's weird that he's not sinking.
Yeah.
But I don't know.
What is the final quote? Like, life is nothing but a state of mind.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a good way to end it. It's a good line to end on.
It does have a great ending, and
yeah. What do you feel when it's over? What do you feel? Like, I feel personally, it seems almost like dread. It seems dark and sad and sort of dreadful, and I don't know why. Maybe it's the implications of someone so easily manipulated being thrust into like such a powerful position. I don't know, but something seems
dread. You feel dread for
the world,
for Chance.
Well, not
Chauncey.
even for him. I don't even care about him as a character.
For the world,
I feel dread for the world and for the way
that's
things
what I thought
work.
you meant initially. Yeah, I could see that, and I definitely feel that more with each subsequent viewing. And I think that speaks to what you said way back, was that, it feels modern and contemporary and it may be more applicable today than ever.
Yeah.
And so like that aspect of it definitely makes me feel pretty bummed by the end. And just, people's ability to see what they want, and how, I also think there's something about, being white and a male and failing upward.
Oh yeah. This movie was making that point long before it was fashionable to do so.
Yeah. So yeah, I feel dread about those sort of things and what it's saying about our society and our politics for sure.
I think it's effective in that sense. That's why I feel that way.
Yeah. I do think that the ending with the walking on water thing does leave this sort of like wry smile tone to the ending too, that the movie's kind of having some fun with you and like giving you a little wink, a little,
Yeah.
Isn't this fun? That he's like, that everybody's going to make him president. So like, I do mostly feel like, this is fun. It's fun satire here.
Yeah.
But
fair enough.
But it's both.
It seems much more bleak to me. I don't know.
Yeah.
All right. But anyway, did we do it? Did we review Being There?
I think we did.
Okay.
I can't think of much more.
Okay. Well, still a good movie. Don't love it as much as I used to, but I think it's still a solid 4 out of 5, and I would recommend it to most people.
Yeah. I love everything it's doing if I don't love watching it as much as that.
And do you think you would love it if you were watching it for the first time? Or do you think...
Yeah. I mean, I think...
You think it's just because you've seen it so much that you just don't love it the way you used to?
Yeah, it's a rewatchability as much because like I know what's coming and I've seen it before, and it's not. There's not that much more to me to glean out of like the repeat viewings if you remember it well enough.
That's
right.
That's the best way to say it. Yeah, if it was like a movie that I remember nothing about, then I might have had a different experience. But I remembered a lot more of that movie than I realized I did.
Yeah.
All right, cool. So now we should move on and pick our next entries to be voted on in our Casually Criterion poll. Justin, what is our theme?
Our theme, we're continuing our reverse chronological journey through the decades. We started with 2020's Criterion films, then 2010s, then 2000s, and so on until we are here. This was our 1970s film, Being There, that we just reviewed. So now we are on to the 1960s. Woo! So we are each going to pick 2 films from the 1960s to put in a poll for you to vote on. Go to Twitter/X at Casual Cinecast to vote. But yeah, 2 films from the 1960s. This has been my most dreaded decade for when we get here because it's really hard to just choose 2 because there's so many good things in the 60s.
Yeah. It is impossible to narrow it down. But anyway, I've chosen 2 films, and I guess I feel good about them. But it's hard to feel too good when there's just so much being left on the floor.
Yeah, it's a bit of a basic cinephile opinion, maybe. But many of my favorite directors and my favorite film movements in cinema history were at their heights in the 1960s. So this is very hard for me. Yeah. Is it? Yeah. I mean, I guess it's nerdy, but like to me, it's in like the most basic way, right? Like it's just, it's almost like
it just
like
is.
saying like your favorite comic book character is Superman or something, right?
Yeah.
Like it just kind of feels like the easy choice. I don't know. But anyways, do you want to go first, or do you want me to go first?
Sure, I'll go first.
Okay.
I've got a film that I'm confident that you do not have.
Excellent.
All right. So, this is a film from D.A. Pennebaker.
Yeah, I don't have this one. I don't even know what it is.
It is called Don't Look Back, which is a Bob Dylan documentary.
Okay.
From the 1960s.
You and you're forcing us into all these musical documentaries.
I know. I don't even know if this is a musical documentary. I don't know what it is, but I did check the runtime because I was like, this is easily one of those things that could be like 3 or 4 hours long, and I don't want to make Justin do that. It is a breezy 96 minutes.
Okay. Yeah, that's good.
Yeah. So there you go. First choice, Don't Look Back.
Yeah.
From 1967. Dylan's last acoustic tour before going electric.
Wow. I didn't even know that was a thing. That he had a last one. I thought he could have still just been doing it.
Nah, it was a big deal. You remember that movie, I'm Not There?
I remember it, but I never saw it.
Oh, then never mind. It was a big deal whenever Dylan went electric. People freaked out.
Apparently. I know that now. Look at me. I'm learning.
Well.
Okay, my first choice. Are you ready?
I am.
Okay, so as I kind of said earlier, a lot of my favorite film movements and film directors were at their heights in the 1960s, and I'm going to go with one of my favorite directors, which is Jean-Luc Godard. But I will pick a slightly more obscure film of his. I'm not going to go with Breathless. I'm going to go with my personal like favorite of his to watch from like just having a great time perspective.
And that is going.
Yeah, is it A Woman is a Woman?
No, I didn't know where we were going.
No. Okay. Were you thinking Pierre Lafaux?
I was.
Yeah. See, like that's probably my favorite Godard. But I find this one to, I find A Woman is a Woman to be just sort of like really playful and fun. And doesn't often get dragged down into some of the more like pure artsy, political spiels that like Pierre Lafaux does. This one to me is just, it's breezy, it's fun, it's a good time.
Yeah.
And so that's why I'm going with A Woman is a Woman.
A little bit of Godard hanging out in the genre film and not being fully like, let's turn it on its head only a little bit, not fully.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, cool.
Exactly.
Cool.
But, yeah,
it's been a while since I've seen that movie. I've only seen it once, so it'll be good to get that one under the belt if it wins.
I've probably seen this one. This will probably be my like fifth watch,
really?
I think. Yeah. It's also short too, so it ain't too long. But okay, what's your second choice?
All right. So my next film is from René Clément, and it is Purple Noon.
Okay.
All right.
Are you going for like just things you haven't seen? Because I feel like there's so many big movies to choose from the 1960s. I thought we'd have like a bunch of sort of like milestone films here.
I'm trying to go with movies I haven't seen. I feel like I tend to go for movies that I have seen, and then they win, and then I watch a movie that I've already seen.
Yeah, right.
Which is a good way to do things, but the 60s just had so much that I got excited for new stuff.
Yeah, I'm torn between the obligation to try to cover some of the big stuff that we haven't done yet, you know?
Yeah.
Things like Breathless or Persona or whatever.
Right.
But and then wanting to watch something I haven't seen.
Yeah. Yeah, if I'd have been in a different mood, I might have gotten like two things I've already seen, which I've seen a lot of stuff from the Criterion 60s. There's plenty I could have picked from, but I don't know, wanted something new. But anyways, what's your second?
Okay. My second is, I guess like, I'm not going to pick a big one then, cause then it feels like it'd be like unfair in this lineup, you know, to pick something like Breathless or Persona.
Right. Well, I mean, do what you got to do.
Well, I'm going to go with, what I consider to be a bit of an underdog filmmaker that I think hasn't gotten the praise that he deserves. But this is Pierre Ite. And he has a box set that I am a huge fan of. It felt similar to like the first time I watched like a Keaton or a Tati movie, where I was just like seeing something that I felt was like really fresh and inventive in comedy, in a ways that I haven't seen it before. In a way, he kind of feels like Tati mixed with Buster Keaton, kind of like a merging of the two, and sort of living in his own sort of world of humor that I find really fun. But the film I'm going to go with, because he has a box set with a bunch of films in it, but I'm going to pick The Suitor, which is his first feature-length film, and his shortest, and my favorite of the films that I've watched in there in terms of the feature length. I think it's really funny, but it won't win, so maybe that doesn't matter.
Who knows? It looks like we got some more obscure stuff. I bet A Woman is a Woman or Purple Noon are the...
Yeah.
Probably A Woman is a Woman.
Those are my two. Purple Noon is the Alain Delon.
Talented Mr.
Ripley.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I haven't seen Talented Mr. Ripley either, so like if that one wins, I'll probably end up watching both.
Yeah. I've been wanting to watch the Talented
comparison.
Mr. Ripley again since I was a kid.
I've never seen it. So
Cool. Well, I know
It'll be
you
fun,
like
but
movies
okay.
that are heavily inspired by it sometimes.
Like The Room?
No. Yes. Why not? Not what
Which
I was
one?
going
Which
for,
one?
but sure. The Room.
Which one were you going for?
Saltburn.
Oh, okay. Yeah. That makes sense. Okay. I
thought you knew because I brought it up on the episode where we talked about it. I was like, this is...
You did, but it's
Reminded
been
me
like
of this.
6 months since we recorded that,
That's
or
true.
8 months or longer. I don't know.
Yeah.
So I don't
Who
remember.
knows?
But okay. Okay, but those are 4 choices. Like I said, go to Twitter/X at casualcinecast to cast your vote for which one you want us to review next. And with that, Mike, are we done with this episode?
We are. Thank you.
All right. Yeah, it's a long one, so thank you, listeners, so much for listening, especially if you're still listening. Thanks, as always, to Jake Wagner-Russell for doing our intro and outro music. If you want to hear more of his music, go to soundcloud.com/bopscotch.
All right. Stay tuned. Like, subscribe, all that stuff. Our next episode will be whatever wins this poll for the 1960s.
That's right. Come on, The Suitor.
Yeah.
I want to watch it.
Come on, don't look back. Come on, all the Bob Dylan legion out there.
Yeah, maybe there's a release the Snyder cut level.
Yeah, I need a hashtag.
entourage of
I need a Bob Dylan Twitter hashtag for all the Bob Dylan fans on Twitter out there.
the Bob Dylan army on Twitter.
Yeah. All right.
Well, we'll see if they come through, but until then, I'll talk to you later.
All right. Bye.
Bye.